Good morning everyone. I've always wanted to test a 360-degree camera, and that's what we're doing today with the Insta360 One X2. This won't be your normal review, as my goal is to bring you along so we can both learn together how this camera actually works. Now with the Insta360 One X and my skis ready, let's go in the forest to film some B-roll. For those of you who are new to this channel, I'm Bellemare-Alford, a young photographer and filmmaker on a journey to become better at this art. A few weeks ago, Insta360 reached out and asked me if I would be interested to make a comparison between their camera and the DJI Pocket 2. They do not get to see this video, they do not get to pay me, and they don't even know I'm making this video, so you're getting my full unbiased review of this camera in this video. I'll quickly talk about the build quality of this camera. So it's really actually pretty impressive. So the handle is all made of metal, which I didn't really expect. I expected it to be made of plastic or something like that. And the camera is actually a lot heavier than I thought, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good thing because it has a huge battery. So that means you're probably getting better performances out of that battery and out of the camera because there's so much tech inside of this small body. The idea with the Insta360 is that you can shoot first and reframe later. So this is particularly useful when doing things like right now when we're going to go for a ski. We can just enjoy the activity, film some footage, and afterwards decide what is the best framing for your shot. I'm also using the built-in microphone right now, so I'm pretty curious to hear if it sounds good or not. I finally got to the trail, so let's talk a little bit more about the camera itself. So if you come in here, you might be a little bit scared because there's a lot of snow falling right now, and you might think it's not waterproof, but it's actually waterproof up to 10 meters. So this is not a problem at all being outside. The only big problem is actually the lens is going to get some snowflakes on it. So first thing, you can actually buy this little pouch to go on it to protect it when you're not using it. But the most important part is actually to bring with you the little lens cloth that they gave that comes with the camera, and always wipe your lens before taking every shot. Now if we look at the different buttons on here, first we have on the side right here our power button. So if we press it, we're going to see that after a few seconds it's going to power up and tell us that it's on. Then if we look at the other side right here, we have first at the top here a little door, and behind the door we have access to our USB-C connection. That's for charging and also transferring file if you want. Then if we go, we're just going to close it, then we go down here. If we take this one out, we have the battery here, and it's a huge battery, so I'm pretty sure it's going to last pretty long. And one thing I had a hard time finding at the beginning was actually where was the SD card, but the SD card is located right inside of here. So now you know if you're searching for the SD card where it's located. So we're just going to put back the battery inside to keep the water sealing. Finally, at the bottom here you have your 1/4-inch screw, and this screws into this invisible selfie stick. And this might seem a little bit silly, but I wasn't sure how to extend the selfie stick at the beginning. I thought we had something to turn or something like that, but you actually just pull it and it holds in place perfectly steady. So it's actually really simple to use. Just pull it, unpull it, and that's pretty much it. Now let's quickly talk about the different video modes that are available on the camera, because I definitely want to try out the hyperlapse mode that they have because it seems to be pretty cool. So if we come on the camera right here and we look at the screen and we swipe up, so this is my understanding up to now, is that if we swipe up right here, we have quickly our different shooting modes. We have a picture here, we have video, and we have time lapse. Now if we come back to the main menu, let's say we select video mode, and then we go on the little icon here. So if you click on the little video icon here, you're gonna have different shooting modes. So here we're gonna have standard, HDR, time lapse, time shift, and bullet time. So I'm not 100% sure what are all these different modes, but I guess standard is what I was using up to now, which is seemed to be the default mode. HDR seems to be for high dynamic range, but right now I don't really need high dynamic range, so I'm not going to test it out for now. Then time-lapse, I guess, is just a time-lapse, but I'm not sure if this is the one we need to be using for the hyperlapse, but I think what we need to be using is Timeshift. So this is going to allow to have a hyperlapse with motion blur inside of it and then freeze the time. Now, bullet time, I think it's when you turn around, you can have a mode where you put it on the top and you turn it around to get a pretty cool effect. But we're going to go inside of Timeshift. And now if we go from the left of the menu, or from the right of the menu here, we can swipe, and then we have our different settings here. So we have our exposure, our white balance, exposure. I'm just gonna leave everything automatic. We could also shoot in vivid, so we're in vivid color right now. We could shoot in log and different settings. Another thing to note right now is actually that if you go from the bottom here and change your video mode, so let's say you go back in standard, you're actually gonna get more advanced settings here. So you can select if you wanna have auto exposure or manual exposure, and then you can go through the different options, and you might have a few extra options depending on the mode you're selecting. So for example, I think if we go on HDR, we only have access to the white balance because the camera is doing all the rest of the work for you. So you can only change the white balance in this case. So this is something to keep in mind. But yes, let's go back inside of Timeshift and test that out. I'm just gonna say it right away, but it's pretty incredible how good and rugged this camera is. It's pretty cold outside right now, plus the rain that is falling down. I'm completely soaked, and the camera seems to have no problem at all. I'm a little bit scared of how this one's gonna look on the lens, but apart from that, it seems to be working perfectly fine in this state. Two pretty important things I forgot to mention is first that you can use a little touch screen here to look around and see what you're framing, and this is a big improvement that they brought to the second generation of this camera. And the second thing is also that on the bottom here, if you click on the image, you actually have your different frame rates and resolutions. So it usually films at 5.7K. That's the whole image for the 360-degree view. But you also have options at 4K and also a 3K at 100 frames per second. So the 100 frames per second is for slow motion. So that's what I'm going to try out right away. So I think I'm gonna have to call it a day a little bit earlier right now because the conditions are just not good. I'm soaked completely and it's pretty cold, so yeah, I prefer going back home. Just when I was getting very close to home, the snow decided to stop being as awful as it was, so we're going to continue reviewing this outside. So there's a few things I just discovered about the Insta360 One X2, and the first one is that you can quickly start recording by long pressing the record button. So that's the button in the front here, and it's going to open the camera right away, start recording, so it takes about a few seconds to get started, and it's recording right now. Then when you want to stop, you simply press the button and the camera is going to power off automatically. So this is pretty useful if you don't want to have the camera on and you just want to quickly stop recording without keeping the camera on all the time. So if you have the camera on now, there's a few other things I want to talk about. So first of all is that I forgot to say, but you can actually view your footage by swiping from the left here. But one thing I realized and was a little bit disappointed is that I realized that if we have some slow motion footage, so like right here, you can actually not view it on the camera itself. You need to go through the app, But if you have some 360 footage, so just let me swipe here and start playing the 360 footage, you can actually look at it and swipe around to see different point of views. So this is pretty cool if you want to review your footage pretty quickly on the camera without having to take out the phone to do it. If you're enjoying this video, please let me know by hitting that like button below, and also consider subscribing to get more content on the Insta360 photography and filmmaking. Another pretty neat feature of the Insta360 One X2 is that it can also take 360-degree photos, not just videos. So if we come in our menu in the bottom here and we go in our selections, we can actually choose the first mode right here, which is for photos. And just like for video, we have the standard mode, we have HDR, we have burst mode, we have interval, and we have night shot. Interval, I'm actually pretty excited to test this one out. Maybe not today because the conditions are not good, but this is going to allow to take raw pictures but with an interval, so you're actually going to be able to control that and do time lapse or something like that, taking high resolution pictures instead of using only the video. But one thing I realized, so if we go back in standard mode where we have the most options, and then we slide from the right here to access our more advanced settings, we're actually going to see first that we have an option for JPEG plus RAW, which is pretty great. Then after, if we go on manual mode, we're going to have a lot more settings. And if we go on the shutter speed right here, we can actually see that we have an option to go up to, let me scroll, it's going to take a few seconds. The shutter speed can be up to 120 seconds, so that's a full 2 minutes of taking a picture. So that is pretty great because it's going to allow, especially at night, to get much longer shots and much more light inside of this tiny sensor. Now if you go on the other options, you can control the ISO, the white balance, so you have pretty much control over your shot. Then if we come back in our exposure setting, another pretty cool thing here is that you have access to auto. So I'm leaving on auto today because that's my goal, is just to test how it works out of the box. But if you go in manual, we just talked about it. If you go on ISO priority, so you can set your ISO and the rest is going to be automatic. You can have shutter priority and you can have isolated. So yeah, let's take a few test shots and see how it performs in auto mode automatically. Actually, two things I was just going to forget is first that you have an option to put a timer. So if you click on the bottom of your little screen here, you can have an option to select a timer, so 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So I think that's a good idea to have it on 3 seconds, so you have the time to put it on the pole and take your picture. So then there's a little button here that you might miss. So by default it is on, but if you click on it, it's going to say check pure shot effect in the app. So I think this is going to add a little bit better editing to the photo once you look at it instead of the app afterwards. So before it gets too dark today, I want to end the day by talking about vlogging using the Insta360 One X2. So this is an important thing for me because I vlog a lot using these types of cameras. And I think what is very interesting using this camera is actually that you can see what I'm seeing, because I can turn around the camera as I wish. And you can also see me, and I can change the framing afterwards. I can get a tighter shot, a wider shot. I can control all of this right after taking the video. Now let's switch to Steadicam mode and talk about that mode. So I'm now using Steadicam mode, and Steadicam mode allows to replicate what you get with most normal action cameras. So you get a super wide angle field of view. The only problem I have with this mode is that it maxes out at 1440p, which isn't a huge problem for me because most of the videos coming out of the Insta360 One X2 is 1080p, so that is a little bit higher than what you get normally. And a super wide angle field of view is going to be very useful for me when I'm going to be doing first-person videos of me taking pictures. So I'm pretty excited to test that out. And if you're wondering how it compares to the DJI Pocket 2, that's going to be my next video, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So my big question now is how good is the stabilization going to be inside of this mode? So I quickly checked some of the footage at the 360-degree view and it seemed to be pretty good, but didn't really look at it in detail. And for this one I enabled Pro mode because it allows to use the computer to apply the stabilization, so I guess it should be a little bit better than doing it inside of the camera directly. So we're gonna see the footage to see if it's actually good or not, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be pretty good. Now let's talk about the other menu options that are available on the camera. So if we come to the top here and slide down, we're first going to see that we have an option for the screen brightness. So this one is pretty self-explanatory. The second one is to lock the screen, and this was actually very useful yesterday when by accident with the snow it was really easy to touch the screen and make things that you didn't want to. So by accident I was in photo mode at some point when I was trying to take a video, so this is pretty useful. Then if we go on the next mode here, we're going to have the LED lights on or not, and this is very useful because on both sides we have nice LED lights right here that allows you to know when the camera is on and if you're recording or not. So this is especially useful when it's high on the pole where you cannot really see the screen to know if it's recording or not, so you can always look at the lights to know if it's recording. Then you have if quick capture is on, so that's what I talked about yesterday, where you can simply long press the button and it's going to open the camera, start capturing the video, and then stop right afterwards. Then there's a few other options that are pretty cool. So the first one here, you have AirPods support. So if you have AirPods from Apple, you can actually link them and use the audio from your AirPods. I don't have that option, so it's not going to work. Then if we look at the next option here is your audio settings. So you can either film the audio from all around, so 360-degree audio, or you can use the wind reduction. I'm on wind reduction and it seems to be working pretty well. Then you have your voice command. So this is actually the one super useful to have on. So if you just say to the camera when it's on the stick, you can say start recording, and here it starts recording. And once you're ready to stop, you simply say stop recording, and it stopped recording. There's a few other options for voice control, but this is super useful, especially when it's on the pole and you don't want to have to touch the camera every time to start and stop recording. Now we have our other options inside of the more advanced settings. So you have general, you have Bluetooth remote, you have auto sleep, voice control, SD card, video encoding, so you can either select your 360-degree mode or your Steadycam mode, and the camera information. So this is pretty much all the other options you have. So there's actually a lot of options already built in inside of the camera. What are my thoughts of this Insta360 One X2 after using it for just over a day? I first thought that 360-degree cameras were kind of a gimmick, but after using it, I really like it. First of all, it's very rugged, so like we saw yesterday, after using it on a very heavy snow that was kind of rain, it didn't have any problem at all and was perfectly fine afterwards, which is a very important thing for me. The second thing is that we have pretty good audio directly out of it, so this is actually something I like quite a lot, is that you can just use it to vlog or something like that, and you know that you're going to be getting pretty good audio without anything additional with it because you cannot plug in a microphone or something like that. It's also very easy to use, but there's a lot of options in the menu, so it might be a little bit complicated when you're starting, but once you understand what are all these options, it's actually really easy to go through all the menus and change your settings as you wish. Another really great thing is that during winter, they have big buttons all around the camera, so it's really easy to press on them, even if you have gloves or things like that on your hand while manipulating the camera. There's also a pretty good battery life, so it lasted for about like 2-3 hours yesterday. And I filmed about like an hour of footage, so that's pretty good. And it was also pretty cold yesterday, and I had no problem at all during the cold weather, which is the problem with some of my other cameras where the lens freezes or something like that. This had no problem at all with the cold weather. It's also very cool because you can get some super unique shots with this camera that you simply cannot get with any other cameras. And then with the selfie stick, you can really just point it wherever you want, whether it's higher, lower, or things like that, and get some completely different shots that you're not used to seeing. And this is great because it allows you to be more creative in the end. Now, not everything is perfect about this camera. There's two things that frustrate me just a little bit. The first one is that you need to go through the app for a lot of things. So some of the footage you simply cannot review it on the camera directly. You need to open the app just to be able to review the footage. So I would like if they could fix that, and so we can see all the footage directly on the camera to quickly know if the shot is good or not. The second thing is that there's so many options that it can be kind of complicated to understand where are all the options, and some of the modes actually have more settings that are hidden away. So it's just a thing that you need to learn all the different options that are possible on camera. So I highly suggest you go through all the different options on the camera and try to understand all the menus before using it, to not lose time when you're in the field and don't really understand how to change the different setting on the camera. This is an easy camera to recommend, especially if you're doing action sports or you just want to get more creative shots. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by hitting the like button below, and also consider subscribing. My next video is going to be a comparison with the DJI Pocket 2, and the video after that is going to go through more creative techniques, including the AI modes that this camera has built in. So see you in the next one. Bye bye.